the perfect gift for your space-spun sporting, constantly caffeinated ray of sunshine geometry teacher, Venmo loved by you, and your spunky teacher too. Check everyone off your list with a Venmo gift card. This is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and you guessed it, I'm your host April. If you're a returning listener and a part of the Teachable Moments with April podcast family, welcome back. For those who are checking me out for the first time, well, hello and welcome. To everyone listening, be encouraged and look for the teachable moments that are all around us. Enjoy. All right, this is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and I'm your host, April. So I'm back with Miss Mary. Welcome back, Miss Mary.
Thank you.
All right, so in our last interview with Miss Mary, we talked about a wide variety of things. And today, this afternoon, it's something very interesting that I've noticed about Miss Mary. Now, I can't say when it first happened, and Miss Mary might have a better memory of it, is that from time to time, within the past, 2 years, maybe 3, more or less, she will get like these calls, these random calls about her book. And she just received a phone call literally minutes ago from someone about her book. So I am going to pass it over to Miss Mary, and I want her to share what was said that she can recall in this conversation. Miss Mary, so this individual called you. It's been a little bit about this book. Can you tell everybody what exactly was said in this phone call?
It's no secret. I get some really weird phone calls.
Okay.
That's why I wanted my caller ID back from the telephone company, which...
Right. We touched on AT&T and about Miss Mary ended up getting her landline put back on.
After they turned it off for no reason that I know of. They turned it
off. Now, it was something that I actually don't remember if we mentioned in that last interview with Miss Mary, is that they also had said from the company, AT&T, is that the phone number that my Miss Mary has had for a very long time, I said that, is that the phone number itself was incompatible with the services that they had at AT&T. Now, the ironic thing to me is that they're the ones that gave us that number over 40-some years ago. So allegedly, that is why the whole digital phone or whatever was going on with that, it didn't work. Okay, so it was incompatible. But the interesting part about this fact is that when she got her landline turned back on and she had received these texts from some kind of technician at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and the individual came, the tech came, and actually reconnected the phone. It had the same number. Okay, so they said prefixes, whatever that may mean, are finished, they're obsolete. Over, they're ended, it's obsolete, this number is no longer, it's decommissioned, it's incompatible. I don't know when that happened, but ironically, when it was turned back on, and I have looked high and low, Miss Mary has called and talked to other people since then, no one can tell us who ordered the service request. No one will tell us. No one can tell us. They also sent something to the house in which it was in booklet form. They made a booklet, not a book. Speaking of books, a booklet with the actual number on it. and they will give you like 3 numbers, possibly 4, that is a part of the account number, which is a derivative of your phone number. So they made a booklet. But when Miss Mary called to ask why she didn't still have caller ID, why she still didn't have voicemail, why she didn't have call waiting, no one that she talked to knew anything about this phone number. But somehow at AT&T, they made something I have never seen. They made a booklet revolving around this number that no one knew existed at all. Not just the now one that we got, which is the exact same number. The exact same number that is canceled. When I go online to try to pay anything on it, it still says in big red letters, canceled. But they made a booklet. So if no one knows about it and it no longer exists, who made the booklet? Who made the booklet? Okay, so I'm going to go back that. So that's just that. The phone is back, but I don't know. Now they seem to recognize it, but there's some other weirdness there about your voicemail and trying to install it.
It was not a problem installing it.
Right.
It just don't work.
She got the call ID, but it no longer exists with the name and the number. You only get the number. So when did caller ID get altered where you only get, you got to choose whether you just want the name or you just want the number? Do you got to say that too? I want both. Because I thought caller ID said the name and the number. So now it's not no name. It's just the number. But the number allegedly doesn't exist when you try to access it like I did it before online.
We only have to wait and see what happened because I'm having some problem with my heart. And because so many things can happen from Bank of America to AT&T, my ex-husband's teeth.
Right. We don't know what happened with that.
The police need funds.
They call her at night. They said, this is what we need from you.
Okay. And now I'm going to get into this.
The book, the novel, the book. Okay, so I'm going to ask Miss Mary just one question. Miss Mary, have you ever written a book?
I have written transcripts. Never had them published. Never left the house.
Have you ever written a book and had it published?
No way.
Okay. What did this young man say to you about your book that allegedly you wrote and has already been published?
Okay, the young man that called me with the very high, very thick accent. I can't tell you what accent it was, but he had a high accent. So I had to try to get the best I could out of him. Because periodically they call me about this alleged book I wrote. I have never had a book published. I have considered writing children's books. I done wrote transcripts about my life and different things. Never left the house. I don't even know where they are now.
Now, I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to break in. What did this young man say this book was about?
He said my book was about the immigrants. That would be something more recent what's been in the news about immigrants. And he needed to discuss this book with me because it had more potential than it's been published for. It has great potential. And he needed to talk to me and ask me some questions before he turned me over to
He said some kind of senior editor.
Senior editor. I asked him where did he get my number from. The reason why I asked him because this number don't seem to exist and nobody knows about. So why are you calling? How did you get this number then? And it did stay off. AT&T let it stay off about a week or so before they came through. After April went to different places trying out why would this happen to a person that never been late for their bill, never requested it. But he kept on insisting that he had to talk to me about it because this book would have better impact if I could answer a few questions about this book that I never wrote.
Right.
So I finally asked him, I said, well, he would not answer me to where he got my number from. So he kept talking to me, so I finally asked him. So I was trying to listen to make sure I could understand clearly what he said. When I got to the end, I said, well, I went through a stroke and different things had happened to me. I was trying to lay here and relax. And I really went, well, I am so sorry. I said, I'm sure you are, that I called you and disturbed you. I said, well, I'm going to have to tell you something. I never wrote a book. So how can you have a book by me when I never wrote one? I waited till the end to tell him, because I was trying to get as much information about this phantom book. So when someone else called me about this book that I didn't write, I would be prepared.
When they first started calling sporadically about a book, Miss Mary assumed that they got it mixed up with myself, because I have written poetry. I haven't written any novels or any books or anything like that. My thing is poetry, and I'd written them, but those books, I haven't written anything in a long time. So she just assumed when she would get these like sporadic calls that they're just mixed, and I did too. They weren't very frequent, but I find it interesting. I don't know if she asked questions before or anything. I would think I might remember her saying that. It's that now she received, like I said, a call, but then they altered it and said that the book was about the immigrants or migrants.
Did. Right.
He also said something, because at some point Miss Mary did put it on speaker. Hold on, that might be him calling back. All right, we're back. So no, it's not the individual that called earlier. When the phone rang, I thought it was the young man calling back. Okay, so about this book that Miss Mary wrote, asking questions. He's going to ask questions, kind of like an intake, and then he's going to transfer the call to the senior editor, and he's going to ask questions. There's two reasons why I want Miss Mary to talk about this is because it's unusual. I find it to be unusual.
Very.
Okay, and anything unusual, I tend to zero in on. And I think it's possibly a scam, obviously, because if she never wrote a book, what is this about? And the fact that they chose the topic of the thing that is happening right now with the immigrants and migrants. Now, I don't know what the angle is. It can't be good. And me hearing her ask questions before she put it on speaker, it reminded me kind of when people describe people who are psychics that aren't really psychic. I don't know what people believe out there about psychics, but let's just say they're fake. People who are fake psychics, people who really don't have the gift. I do believe that some people have the gift of second sight. As to its source, I don't know, but very vague. Every time she would ask questions, it would be a pause. Okay, and then she would talk, and then she'd put him on speakerphone. Now, what I found interesting is when she would ask these questions, and he would kind of say, okay, he would give like a okay, like a pause, there would be a clicking on the phone. I don't know if he was being coached and it was something that he could hear. I don't know, but he would give these vague answers that weren't really answers.
Yeah, because I asked him, I told him, I said, now, how can you call my house when I didn't call you? Right. And ask me questions, but I can't ask you no question that you can't answer.
Right.
So, and the other thing that was a giveaway was, to me, was something wrong, was when he kept repeating my name.
Right.
And I said, okay, we established that's my name.
Right.
So you don't have to keep saying my name. It's like, they had to be sure they had the right person.
Right.
And they kept repeating my name. I'd hate for people to keep repeating my name.
Even though this is about a book, it reminded me also of when you hear about scams and them telling people, consumers or people, to be careful about, even if they say hello, yes or no,
right.
It kind of, and then the questions, what possibly would be the questions that he never quite got to?
I don't know.
If that was his
He never
goal.
asked me. He said when he finished,
other than saying your name over and over again, which
he
is weird.
repeatedly said my name over and over again, telling me about this book about the immigrants.
Right.
When I asked him, I said, since I wrote this book and you have the information in front of you, tell me what is my book about.
Right. And
he told me about the immigrants, migrants, or whatever. And that kind of threw me, because what could I write about the immigrants?
I'm wondering something. I'm wondering, there has been a lot of talk about the immigrants, you being a homeowner of color. I wonder if this is something
to do with that.
And to get some kind of audio of you saying something.
Right. It was to get an audio. I should have hung up. But
now that I'm thinking about it.
But over the last 2 years, I get a call about my book, and I usually wouldn't talk to him. I just said, no, I'm not interested in what you're talking about, and just hung up. But today, for some reason, my blood pressure keep going up. I refuse to let people upset me. I'm trying to stay calm and watch my diet and so forth to get it down. And I was just going to talk to him briefly, but he would not.
Because you're wondering.
He would not shut up. But I'm sure somewhere, if it's a scam, this is not the end of it.
No.
We'll be hearing more about this.
I don't know if I mentioned it, but I mentioned to Miss Mary, but I don't think I mentioned it here, is that on the local news, I only seen it once, is that they said that there was these fake or counterfeit letters going around to, sadly, or whatever, people, homeowners, Illinois homeowners. I'm going to guess that they are people of color, and saying that their house had been entered into, which they didn't enter it in, had been entered into some kind of selection for some kind of program to host, allegedly, homeless migrants.
Right.
And that their house had been selected, and that they would have to relinquish their rights and their keys and be given to whatever family that was chosen, that was homeless and migrants. Now, on the Channel 32 news, they said that these letters were fake, but I'm very skeptical of that. I haven't heard any more about it, and I just find it interesting. Allegedly, this is about this person, not necessarily the same person, is now calling and allegedly about a book that doesn't exist, but it happens to be that you wrote it, and that it was about immigrants or migrants, and you just happen to be a person of color
and a
homeowner. So are they, what's going on?
We'll find out.
But they decided to ask the questions, but never asked the questions.
No.
And then became a little frazzled when you started to ask questions just so you could.
I want to find out about this book.
What is this? Why
I should have told him to send me a copy of that book.
But I have a feeling they'll call back.
I am too. They call it periodically, but this one was a little bit more specific than the one in the past.
So you were saying that this individual had a very heavy accent, and you couldn't discern.
Some of the things I couldn't discern what he was saying. I said, I would appreciate if I could understand you better. Yes, I understand. I'm sorry, Miss. Yeah, I'm sorry. He kept saying my name. I said, well, everybody know my name.
So this interview is finished, and Miss Mary had to go and relax herself. The phone rang again, and it was someone that didn't say anything this time, which tends to happen, I noticed recently as well. people call and they hold the phone and they don't say anything. That's another very odd anomaly that they do, is that they call and don't say. That happens quite often.
Yes, it does.
All right. You enjoy the rest of your day, Miss Mary.
You too, April.
Mm-hmm. There's a force within you, within all of us, and when we tap into it, not even rain can steal our thunder. In fact, Mother Nature becomes an ally, a trusted co-conspirator to help bring the outside in and let what's inside you out. What in the weather are you waiting for? Be a force of nature, the Weather Channel app. Alright guys, so I came back on to add this to this particular episode, to this interview that I did with Miss Mary earlier today, is that I got very curious and I went online and I basically Googled Miss Mary. I Googled her name and put in immigration book, and what happened was actually something came up. Interestingly enough, I only saw it on two websites. Was Goodreads, okay, and Amazon UK. And there actually is an individual that has her name and actually wrote a book about a family of Polish immigrants. So the book on immigration does exist, and I think it's an ebook or a Kindle. There is no actual paperback or hardback book. And the individual also wrote 4 other books that were also, it looks as though there's some variation of their story, possibly their own family. Okay. And I forget what the name it is. Two families, a story of immigration. And then it says, in the description of the synopsis about 2 families that are Polish, of Polish descent, coming from Poland, of course, and settling at some point in the South is what the synopsis is. So there is a person that shares her name. It doesn't say if it's a male or a female. And about immigration, so that does exist. Now, I'm still kind of puzzled of how that person that called about Miss Mary's book, this alleged book that she wrote on immigration, that actually, let me also add this, it was published actually in August of this year, not that long ago, because we're in October, right? So they published this particular book that I suspect they may be referring to in August of this year. Now, Miss Mary also started to remember some other things that the individual had said to her or questioned her allegedly about. The individual that she spoke to, who was taking, I'm just say the intake before that the intake, who initially called her, said that her book was written and published in New York City. Now, Miss Mary has never lived, as far as I'm aware, in New York City, written anything, published anything in New York City, so that was interesting. I didn't get that information off of the information that I found about this particular Kindle book, that the person that shares her name has any affiliation with New York City, okay, for their particular book that was published in August of this year. They also kept saying, she said later on, something about a process, going through some type of process. Now, I don't know exactly what the narrative here was for this individual who called her, wanted to process her or help her through the process. I'm at a loss. They asked if she had a website, which that's not an uncommon or, illogical question, but they did ask her something along the lines, did she have a webcam? Now, do people even use webcams anymore? Because all of the devices, phones, tablets, they have cameras already built in. So that kind of to me, I find it a little interesting, a little odd. Webcam. You don't hear that anymore. People asking, do they have webcams? I don't come in contact with people asking that. They used to ask stuff like that, but I haven't encountered anybody asking about a webcam, so that's kind of unique. They also asked if she was the author of the book, which is interesting to me, because isn't that why they are calling? And they also wanted to know, does she have the copyright to this particular book that they were referring to, but they could not give her the actual title of the book. So the whole thing is just, like I said, it's very weird to me in a way. They're telling you something, but they're not really telling you something. They're asking you something without really asking you something. So then it led me to go a little bit further and to look up possible scams that revolved around, publishing books in general. And of course, there was quite a bit of information about people being scammed. People who actually have written books who were scammed, having people email them, call them, text them, send stuff to their house, in hopes of getting them published. It's usually people who are, what I picked up from, are first-time writers. But anyone I would think would be, vulnerable or targeted. But usually people who are first starting out, and that's understandable, would be more susceptible because they don't know. And they're excited about their book and their content, and they want to get it out there. So it kind of leaves them vulnerable. This whole thing is just very strange to me. But, there are all types of scams that they're constantly coming up with. But like I said, people have called her in the past about her book. And yet again, they are just very vague. And I don't know why they picked a book in particular. But maybe it's just the whole part of phishing, what they call the definition for phishing. They give something very vague, and then just like when you're fishing, put your line in and see what bites, because there are a lot of people that I found out that have written books and are actually published. So maybe it's not that far-fetched. I just find it very interesting that they pick someone that has not written a book, and they found, well, maybe that's the angle too. They want to reel you in. They look her up and then find someone that shares her name, even though they may know that she didn't actually write it, and then go through the process. Now, with these scams, usually what they want to do is for you to send them some type of money. Also, of course, that's the whole point of the scam, right? So yeah, I'm gonna keep you guys updated with Miss Mary's permission, because it does involve her business, so to speak, on what is actually going on here with this. It just got me really intrigued, and I hope that I didn't push too hard for her to come and be interviewed, but I found it so interesting. I'm like, what? There's just so much going on all the time. People are doing stuff all the time, and I just wish they were doing something that was good, but that's just the sign of the times. It is what it is, right? You were just listening to Teachable Moments with April podcast. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. We invite you to stay connected with us on the other social media platforms of ours, which is TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. Also, we'd like to invite you to check out our official podcast landing page on podpage.com/teachable moments with April to see all our content in one place and leave personal messages, feedback, and more.